We have the tech to get food delivered in 15 minutes, but we all have horror stories about buying tickets. The Game Time app gives fans the advantage. Get amazing tickets in just a few taps. Fees are included, so what you see is what you pay. And the Game Time guarantee means authentic tickets at the best price every time. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets to concerts, sports, comedy, and more with Game Time. Download the Game Time app and create an account for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply.
Breaking down every game, every day in Major League Baseball. This is the Baseball Betting Show. Here is your host, Greg Peterson.
Hey, warmer for Lilo. Welcome to lovely Las Vegas for the Baseball Betting Show with myself, Greg Peterson, now part of the VSiN Family Podcast. We've got an excellent podcast for you. We're going to be joined at segment number 2 by a good friend of ours, Tanner Kern. He does such great work over at DraftKings, looking at so many different things, whether that be baseball, UFC, list goes on and on. Also, as one half of the Ride the Line podcast, we have to talk about some of the disappointments that we've seen in baseball here in the first month of the season. No doubt about the Mets and the Phillies, but additionally, some of these American League teams that have been a bit underwhelming as well. And then we're going to be chatting with them a little bit about these games that we're going to be seeing on Thursday in the final segment. Get you guys picks and analysis on every game on the betting board for this Baseball Thursday as we touch them all. If you do have a question, comment, segment idea, what have you for this podcast, you have one or two ways we all fire those in. First one is my Twitter/X timeline at gunit_81. Keep in mind, Larry CM, naming does not matter, so as per usual, please do send these into the timeline. And the other way is find an Apple Podcast review. If you rate this podcast 5 stars, it's very much appreciated. And then from there, you're able to fire in whatever you'd like to hear on this podcast via the 5-star review. While I did not get in any Twitter/X questions today, we had ourselves a fun day of baseball on Wednesday. Let's take a look back at it, try to find some trends, and try to get to know these teams a little bit better.
Games from yesterday is Greg buzzing about. Here is the rowdy recap.
The Braves have the best record in all of baseball, and they went to 22-9 on Wednesday. 4-3, they're able to take down the Detroit Tigers. Young gun J.R. Ritchie, not bad here. 5 1/3 innings, gives up 3 runs, 2 of which were earned, including a home run to Riley Green, 4th home run of the campaign. Ronaldo Lopez is now coming out of the bullpen, which I thought that was a curious move, but 2 squirrel sightings out of him. Dylan Lee, 1 2/3 innings scoreless. Drake Skubal, another solid start out of him. 2 runs allowed in 7 innings. Did allow a home run as he was taken deep in this one by Ozzy. Albies. 7th home run season. From there, Kyle Finnegan is scoreless inning, and what a shocker. Kenley Jansen blew the game. The Detroit Tigers were up by a count of 3-2 going in the 9th inning. Puts a man on, and then Matt Olson, walk-off home run. He was able to get his 9th home run of the campaign, so Kenley Jansen, he blows it for the Tigers and sends them back below 500. A team that is back to 500, that'd be the Cleveland Guardians. 3-1, they take down the Tampa Bay Rays. Drew Rasmussen, not a bad start here. 3 runs, 2 of which weren't given up in 5 innings. Yandres Gomez, 2 scoreless innings. Casey Lugumina, a scoreless inning, but Gavin Williams, he was on it. 1 unearned run in 7 2/3 innings. Travis Bazzana, they do call up former number 1 overall pick. He had his first error as a big leaguer. Eric Zabrowski, and out of the bullpen scoreless. And then you did have Cade Smith, who's been shaky this year, be able to supply a scoreless inning. Guardians win despite the fact that they go 1 of 12 with men in scoring position. Bazzana still looking for that first career MLB hit, but the Guardians, they do find a way to be able to get that one to the window. Being able to get this one to the window, the Walker Texas Rangers, 3-0 the final. They blow the first ever career start of Elmer Rodriguez, young 22-year-old. Command was an issue. 4 walks given out in 4 innings, allows 2 runs, but not a bad debut. From there, Brad Hendrick was able to give you 1 1/3 innings scoreless. Jake Bird gives the Bird with a run given up in an inning. Tim Hill, pair of outside the bullpen scoreless. Fernando Cruz, a scoreless inning, but Nathan Eovaldi, who's been shaky this year, not shaky in this day. 7 shutout innings. From there, Jacob Lyeth, pair of outside the bullpen scoreless. The Yankees just unable to get any offense going, so the Rangers, they take that one. For the Chicago White Sox, they take down the LA Angels by a count of 3-2. As you say, Kikuchi, I say he had to leave this game due to an injury. 2 scoreless innings, but man, that is rough because his bullpen is not great. Mitch Ferris honestly did his best in long relief. 3 2/3 innings. He allows a run. Chase Silseth, Sam Bachman, both give you a pair of outside the bullpen scoreless. Going into the 9th inning, the Angels had a lead, and then Ryan Zefrian allows an RBI triple, goes 2 innings, gives up a run, and then Drew Pomeranz, who's been absolutely terrible. Unearned run given up in the 10th inning is Eric Fetty Wap. He gives up 2 solo home runs over the course of 7 innings. Mike Trout, 10th home run season. Vaughn Grisham is first, but he was able to lend some length. From there, Brian Hudson and Sir Anthony Dominguez both lend a scoreless inning along Tyler Davis. A 3-pitch inning. So congratulations to him, and the White Sox, they are able to get the job done. The Angels, Now 12-20 after it was looking like it might be a little bit of a promising season. The Twins blow their game late, 5-3. The Seattle Mariners get the job done here to get back to 500. George Kirby, 2 runs allowed over the course of 5 2/3 innings, but bullpen at his back. Gabe Speier does allow a run in 2/3 of an inning, but Edward Bazardo, Jose Ferrer both give you a pair of outs out of the bullpen scoreless, and then Cooper Criswell in out of the bullpen scoreless. Andres Munoz, who's been shaky, scoreless inning, and Taj Bradley, he was not playing games. 2 runs allowed in 7 innings, does give up a home run to J.P. Crawford, second home run of the season. Anthony Banda, a scoreless inning, but Eric Orze comes into the game with a lead in the 9th inning, gives up 3 runs in a third of an inning, and then Taylor Rogers has cleaned up the mess. He gets a pair of outs out of the bullpen scoreless, but damage had been done. For the Blue Jays, they did some damage to the Boston Red Sox. 8-1 the final. Brian Bayo, not long for this game, 3 2/3 innings, allows 4 runs, all of which were earned from their Greg Weissert. Pair of outs out of the bullpen, he allows 2 runs, including a homer taken deep by Ernie Clement. First home run of the season. Then the backup catcher, Brandon Valenzuela, his second home run of the season, that comes off of Garrett Woodlock. For Woodlock, he gives up that home run in his inning of work. Giovanni Morin, 2 2/3 innings, he gives up 1 run along the way. And Eric Lauer, who's been pretty miserable thus far this season, not a bad start here, does give up home run to Wilson Contreras, 7th home run of the season. That was a solo shot, gives up a 1 run in 4 1/3 innings. From there, you had Spencer Miles give you a pair of scoreless innings. Tommy Nance, Joe Mantiply, they combine for a scoreless inning, and then Brandon Fisher, he was able to come in 1 2/3 innings scoreless. The Miami Marlins, as big-time money line underdogs, they get it done against the LA Dodgers, 3-2 the final. Sandy Alcantara, 6 innings, gives up 2 runs. Bullpen from there at his back, John King, Calvin Fauché, Andrew Nardi, all in the scoreless inning as Tyler Glasnow gives up 2 runs in 5 2/3 innings, taken deep twice as Liam Hicks, he gets home run number 7 of the season. Then it was home run number 1 for Esteri Ruiz of the season. From there, you had an out of the bullpen scoreless from Alex Vesia. Will Klein gives up 1 run over the course of 2 innings. Kyle Hurt was able to give you a scoreless inning, but Dodgers are averaging darn near 2 runs per game fewer at home rather than away from home. Still in a little bit of a rut in terms of home scoring. Want to know who else is in a rut? The New York Mets, a team has won 3 out of their last, I believe now, 19 games. 14-2. They get mollywopped by the Washington Nationals as Cade Cavalli, 10 punch-outs, gives up 2 runs over the course of 6 innings, including home run to Juan Soto, 3rd home run of the season, but Paxton Schultz, PJ Poulin, Ciano Perez, they all in a scoreless inning. David Peterson, great name. Not great on this day. 7 runs allowed in 3 2/3 innings. Sean Manaea, not any better. 6 runs allowed in 2 2/3 innings. And he allows a home run to Brady Ellis. 4th home run season. Curtis Mead would then take Carl Edwards Jr. deep for his 4th home run of the campaign. For Carl's Jr., 2 2/3 innings, he gave up 1 run. Hopefully you enjoyed the Carl's Jr.'s joke, but by then, damage had very much been done. For the St. Louis Cardinals, they get the job done 5-4 over the Pittsburgh Pirates. Bubba Chandler gives up 3 runs over the course of 5 innings, taken deep by Alec Burleson. 4th home run of the campaign. For the Pirates, they were able to get on the board with a Spencer Horwitz home run, 3rd home run of the season. That comes off of Andre 3000 Palante, who was solid in this one. 1 run allowed over the course of 6 innings. From there, Ryan Stanek, who's been terrible. 2 runs allowed in a third of an inning. Giorgio Romero has to clean up the mess for a pair of outs of the bullpen scoreless, but George Soriano, Riley O'Brien, they both led a scoreless inning, and Pirates bullpen was shakier. You had Chris Davinsky and Evan Sisk combined for 2 innings. They gave up a run apiece. Dennis Santana, Yuto Mets with the Yohan Ramirez, both led a scoreless inning, but for the Pirates, 1 of 12 with men in scoring position, 11 men left on. That was the reason why they were unable to get it done here. The Reds have been a solid team this year, but they are just 9-8 at home. Meanwhile, they are 10-3 away from home. The Colorado Rockies win 13-2. Tomoyuki Sugano continues to be solid. 5 1/3 inning scores. Jimmy Herget gives up a pair of runs in his inning of work, but it was way too little too late. You had Will Benson get his first home run of the campaign. Brendan Bernardino, 5 outs of the bullpen scores. Juan Mejia strikes out the side for a scoreless inning, and Brandon Williamson, 4 runs allowed over the course of 3 innings. From there, it was Mayday as you had a solo run given up by Luis May over the course of his 2 innings of work. Going deep for the Colorado Rockies, Hunter Goodman, his 8th home run season, and then he would get home run number 9 as it was 3 runs allowed in 3 innings for Jose Franco, including 1 of those home runs, and then Jose Trevino, the backup catcher, he gives up 5 runs over the course of his inning of work. So not what the Cincinnati Reds were looking for, but this is what the Cubs were looking for. They take the series against the Slam Diego Padres 5-4. They get the job done here. James Taillon, he gives up 3 hits over the course of 7 innings, but he did give up 3 runs because he was taken deep twice. Nick Castellanos, Miguel Andujar both get their first home run of the campaign. Corbin Martin walks the bases loaded. He gets no outs. He's credited with 1 run. Ben Brown had to come in with the bases loaded. Did a solid job, 1 2/3 innings. Martin was charged with one of those runs, but he held down the fort for him, and then Hobie Milner gets a final out of the game to be able to get the save. And Matt Waldron, a little bit better here, 3 runs allowed over the course of 5 innings, does give up a home run to Pico Armstrong, who seems to be finding it all of a sudden, 3rd home run of the campaign. A little bit later on, Jason Adam gives up a solo shot to Matt Shaw, 3rd home run season. Audrey Modajon, pair of outside the bullpen, he gives up a run, he's been shaky. Bradley Rodriguez, 1 1/3 inning scoreless, and then Mason Miller, he was able to come in for a scoreless inning, but a non-save situation there. The Arizona Diamondbacks get the job done over the Milwaukee Brewers. This by a count of 6-2. Brandon Sproat, 4 runs allowed in 4 1/3 innings. He continues to struggle. Take a deep twice in this one. Nolan Arenado, 5th home run of the campaign, and Anthony Del Castro, his 2nd home run of the season. And then Grant Anderson gives up a pair of home runs in the 9th inning, as you had a home run number 5 of the season for Ketel Marte of the Marte Parte, and then you had Corbin Carroll going deep for his 4th home run of the season. For the Brewers, they go 1 of 10 with men in scoring position. Eduardo Rodriguez walks 4 2/3 innings, gives up just 2 runs though, and then from there, the bullpen was able to put it on lockdown. Kevin Ginkel, 1 1/3 inning scoreless. Juan Murillo, Taylor Clark, Paul Sewell, they all turn a scoreless inning of their own. And then to cap off the night, the Athletics, they get the win 5-2 over the Royals. Very rare back-to-back unders out there in Sacramento. You don't see that very often, but the Royals are right now averaging about 2.6 runs per game away from home. That is dead stinking last in all baseball and could not get a lot going here. As for the Athletics, really nice start out of Luis Severino, who gave up 1 run over the course of 7 innings. From there, Joe Kunal, 1 2/3 innings. He does allow a run in the 9th inning, so Mark Leiter Jr. has to come in to get the final out, and he does. And Michael Wacha, more like Michael Waka 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 dying Pac-Man voice as he gave up 4 runs in 5 innings. Lawrence Butler takes him deep, 3rd home run in the campaign. Lou Inder Avila gives up a run in that inning. Alex Lang, Mason Black, they're both able to give you a scoreless inning. And if you're taking a look at trend-wise, what we're getting in Major League Baseball right now has been an overwhelming season thus far. The over is hitting just at a hair below 53%, 234 overs to 208 unders. Meanwhile, money line favorites are starting to pick up some steam, 247 and 200 on the money line, and among those 247 favorites, 46 failed to cover the -1.5 run line over the last 7 days. Favorites 50 and 37 on the money line at 57.5%, and the over rate just there above 51%. 43 overs, 41 unders, and if math serves me correct, we've had 5 pushes along the way as well. So that's what we're seeing in baseball right now, and that's where we're all getting trend-wise. Coming next, let's chat it up with one of our good friends, Tanner Kern, who does such great work over at DraftKings right here on the Baseball Betting Show with myself, Greg Peterson, now a part of the Beast and Family Podcast.
We have the tech to get food delivered in 15 minutes, but we all have horror stories about buying tickets. The Game Time app gives fans the advantage. Get amazing tickets in just a few taps. Fees are included, so what you see is what you pay. And the Game Time guarantee means authentic tickets at the best price every time. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets to concerts, sports, comedy, and more with Game Time. Download the Game Time app and create an account for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply.
Breaking down every game, every day in Major League Baseball. This is the Baseball Betting Show. Here is your host, Greg Peterson.
And we're back here in lovely Las Vegas for the Baseball Betting Show with myself, Greg Peterson, now part of the Beast and Family Podcast. Always great to be joined by this man, as we've got Tanner Kern aboard. He does such great work over at DraftKings. Taking a look at this great game that we all know and love of baseball, and really does a great job on so many different fronts. Right now, the NBA playoffs is going on. He's doing a great job following that along with the NHL playoffs. He does some great work on the fight front in terms of the UFC and so much more. And he also does his own podcast along with Grant Mitchell, the Ride the Line podcast. Find that wherever you get good podcasts, and you're able to follow him on the old Twitter/X at Tanner Kern, and then an underscore after that. And Tanner, it's always a pleasure, my friend. Thank you.
Thanks for having me, Greg. Always a pleasure joining the show.
Always great to have you aboard. And Tanner, it has been a wild first month or so of the season. And just what have you made out of everything? Because I think what really stands out to me is not necessarily the pleasant surprises, but a lot of the bad disappointments. And I think many of them come in both of the East divisions in terms of the NL and the AL East.
Yeah, I mean, the most surprising thing, I think, is just the Mets being 10.5 games out of first place in the NL East. You know, they had the Juan Soto injury, obviously, but they're just not playing well as a team collectively. So that's been a big problem for them. It's also crazy, too. Philadelphia Phillies struggling. I mean, their run differential's -47. I know they didn't have the massive losing streak like the New York Mets had, but those two teams really have just not been that good this season. The Boston Red Sox, I continue to talk about this on your show, 12-19 this season. They have not looked good. There's a lot of flaws with the roster. firing Alex Cora, that's been a shocker too. Also the fact that you got a guy in Garrett Crochet who's going on the injured list. So the East divisions have been very, very weak this season. Just the American League as a whole right now. You look at the wild card standings. The first place wild card is the Tampa Bay Rays starting to get a little run, but after that, it's the Seattle Mariners at 16-16. So nobody's really separating. Even teams like the Red Sox, the Angels, the Astros, who have had pretty pitiful records to start the season, they're 3.5, 4 games out. So technically the season is by no means over yet.
Yep, and that's, I think, the big thing for me as well. It just feels like there's a big divide between the top teams in the National League and the top teams in the American League. I don't know if you see it that way, but for those that bet futures, I'm personally not one of those guys. If you're looking at long shots to be able to make the playoffs, I would probably be looking much more at some of those fringe American League teams rather than the National League teams, where it feels like it's very top-heavy in the National League.
Yeah, I mean, the Padres, I think the Cubs are really good. That final spot's going to be pretty difficult because you got a team of the Cardinals, the Brewers, the Diamondbacks, Pirates. They're all kind of on that same level. So I think that final wild card spot, it's really up for a lot of teams, where in the American League, I believe the Tampa Bay Rays are going to come back to earth a little bit. Not that they're, world beaters by any means right now, but I think that 18-12 record is going to even out slightly. But there should be 3 spots really for teams in the same ballpark, where in the National League, I do expect the Padres to get a little run here. I expect the Cubs to continue doing what they've been able to do. And then there's that mid-pack of teams competing for one wild card spot. So I definitely think the American League is the division that you probably want to bet on in terms of teams to make the playoffs, because you have 3 opportunities there for the whole group rather than probably 1 in the National League as this plays out.
Yep, I'm in total agreement with you there, as we do have Tanner Kern. He does such great work over at DraftKings, joining me right here on the Baseball Betting Show. And how much do you want to take a look at some of these young guys that have had a nice first month or so of the season? Because we're seeing it with the Nationals, with the likes of C.J. Abrams, James Wood. They've really been guys that, if you've been betting on them to hit home runs, they've been able to cash for you. We've seen some of these players for like the Cardinals be able to step up. You mentioned the Rays. They've had a few guys be able to step up. How much do you think that these hot starts for some of these young players might be a mainstay, or do you think that as the season goes along, it might be a little bit of a fall off just with the grind of 162 games?
I think there's definitely going to be a fall off. I look at a young team in the Pirates who they have young players, but they also have young players with experience. Like, that's one team that I wouldn't necessarily be afraid of a fall off as much, especially when you got a guy like Paul Skeens going every 5th day. I always am hesitant to think that young players are going to continue to stay hot through the 2nd and the 3rd month of the season, just because as you get more tape on them, as you get more knowledge, more information, people know how to attack a little bit better, and then the batting averages fall off. One that comes to mind, obviously, being a Red Sox fan, is Christian Campbell a year ago. I almost bet him to win American League Rookie of the Year last year, and then now he's not even in the big league. So, people fall off very quickly as you start to get more information. So I would bet on that more times than not, than young guys staying hot throughout the majority of the season.
Like, I still remember Jeff Frank Brewer way back in the day. It looked like he was going to be a Hall of Famer. Never turned out to be awful, but never turned out to be quite that guy that he was in the first few weeks of his MLB career as well. And I'm so glad that you mentioned that with regards to Boston Red Sox, because while they are not going to be in action on Thursday, a former Red Sox is. The Cardinals are throwing out their Hunter Dobbins, who at this time last year was making starts for the Red Sox against Paul Skeens. And right now for the Pirates, -$2 or -220 is where you find that money line. Total of 7.5. How do you look at this one? Because with Dobbins, he certainly isn't the swing and miss guy that Paul Skeens is, but he legitimately was not too bad for the Red Sox this year, but always have to have some question marks with a guy making his first start of the season.
Yeah, and you never want to bet against Paul Skeens. I think if the Pirates are on the road here, I'd definitely be more willing to go with the run line. But Paul Skeens has just been fantastic, has the 2.48 ERA, the .72 whip. It looks like he's going to win another Cy Young. I like Hunter Dobbins a lot. I really do. I remember I was at the game, I think, where he tore his ACL. He's very fun to watch, obviously. And, he had some success last year, through 61 innings, gave up 61 hits. Doesn't have a great strikeout per 9, but I think that's going to go up as he pitches a little bit more this year. I'd be leaning towards Pittsburgh with Paul Skeens on the mound. I know it's not worth playing at -220 or whatever number it is, but if you can get a good live line, I think that would be the way to go here, or potentially just playing the under. I think that's another way to attack this, because I don't see St. Louis hitting the ball that much. And then, if Dobbins, goes a few innings and the Cardinals go their bullpen, it's always tough to adjust to new looks every couple innings. So probably the under is the way I would play this one.
Yep, I'm in agreement with you there. I do think that 7.5 just a little bit too high as long as you can get that hook on the 7. I am big on that under there as Tanner Kern. He does such amazing work over at DraftKings. He's joining me right here on the Baseball Betting Show. And then we're going to have a pair of double headers. And right now with a lot of these games, it's TBD because you always get the pitching, shall we say, shuffle that happens with regards to some of these games. Sometimes you think that a guy is going to be going in game 1 and then they turn out to go in game 2. How do you try to be able to play some of these double headers, or are these games that you just stay away from altogether because there is a lot of moving parts with them?
I typically stay away from doubleheaders, at least game 1 of doubleheaders. I think game 2 gives you a little more motivation depending on the pitching matchup for that team that lost game 1. I'm always a big fan of that. If there's a team that lost the first part of it and then obviously has a pitching advantage in the second part for a good price, that would usually be how I play those. But yeah, doubleheaders, I tend to stay away from doubleheaders just because they're so unpredictable. You got teams that could stay hot early on and then, pick it up. You got teams that could start cold and then get high. It's really hard to say. So I just stay away as a whole.
Yep, I don't blame you there. It is a case where those games get to be a little bit more of a roll of the dice, and you've got a lot of, shall we say, TBDs, especially in game number 1. Sometimes you don't get those starters until the morning of, so it makes things a little bit more herky-jerky there. But we do know what we're going to be getting in this game, and that would be Noah Cameron against Jeffrey Springs in Athletics versus Royals. Right now, the A's are about minus 125 favorites. Totals between 9.5 and 10. Want to get your thoughts here because I've been playing a whole bunch of overs out there in Sacramento this year, but with how bad that Royals offense has been away from home, I'm actually leaning towards an under here, which I very rarely do in this ballpark.
I don't think that's a bad idea. You look at Jeffrey Springs, he's been really good this season. The total's 9.5, which, that could get over pretty quickly. But Jeffrey Springs against the Royals, I don't see Kansas City scoring a lot here. If you want to be a little safer, potentially, maybe you go Royals team total under going against Springs. And we saw Springs shut down the Yankees earlier this year. He's that guy, in my opinion. Doesn't necessarily have overpowering stuff, but when he locates, he's fine. You also got to look at the numbers too. The numbers, if he was not pitching in Sacramento, he would definitely be probably a little more dominant from a numbers perspective. At home, he's got a 4.67 ERA. On the road, he's got a 2.95 ERA. Opponent batting average still 222 at home compared to 172 on the road, but the ballpark just simply doesn't help him. So I don't really see Kansas City scoring much, even if they run into a few balls. And, because of the park, their total is elevated. So they definitely, still got to put the ball in play, obviously, to score runs. I just don't see that happening. So I would go team total under for the Royals. And then I love the Athletics on the money line here, minus 130.
Yep, I'm right there with you. I do think that this is a good spot for the A's, and I know that in terms of disappointments out there in the American League, the Royals have been a big one of them. Obviously, the Boston Red Sox, unfortunately, have been as well, but has there been one or two of these teams in the American League that have gotten off to slow starts that you think can be able to pick it up? Because for me, the Royals are just a team that I felt like they were overvalued coming into the season. I don't see it with them, but I do think that's interesting with regards to some of those AL teams. Like, we're going to see the Blue Jays in action on Thursday. They're another one of those teams that has struggled, and do you think that there's one or two of them that might be able to rise up and provide a little bit more value moving forward?
I think the Blue Jays could be that team. Obviously, they have the offense we saw against the Boston Red Sox. I think the Royals, like you said, they're overvalued, but they're still only 2.5 games out of the Central Division. We saw how crazy the American League Central was last year, so you got to think it could be crazy once again this year. And then the Houston Astros, just perennial playoff team, off to a very bad start, and they're starting to get in that danger zone a little bit. But the team's in the best position right now, in my mind. Toronto Blue Jays, obviously 2 games under 500. And then probably a team like the Houston Astros, just because I do trust them across the board with their roster. But they have not been good this year. And really, there's a lot of teams in the American League that just haven't lived up to the hype. Like, I look at a team such as the Seattle Mariners right now, 16-16. That's a disappointment. Been very inconsistent on both sides. Texas Rangers, another team, 1 game out of first in the West, but just very inconsistent too. So there's a lot of teams. We're going to see them develop throughout the year. I can't imagine the American League just stays 500 across the board the rest of the season.
Yep, it has been a lot of teams that have been hovering right around 500 or just a little bit below it because they've been getting beaten up upon by the National League teams. And is there anything else that you're going to be taking a look at for this Thursday, whether it's a game that you're going to be betting or just something that you want to kick back and just see a little bit more from a specific pitcher or a specific team?
Yeah, I'm very excited to see game 2 here, that Astros-Orioles game. I think, you look at game 1, I'm not really concerned concerned about that one, but I think Lance McCullers Jr. has to be better than he's been personally. 6.75 ERA, 1.5 WHIP. The strikeouts per nine are there. He just loses control with the walks a little bit. Going against Brandon Young, who's been really good, and I think there's a lot of betting value in that game. And I'd be considering taking the Astros there, hoping that Lance McCullers Jr. can respond a little bit. I'm excited to see the Mets, Freddie Peralta going against Miles Michaelis and the Washington Nationals. This is a game that, the Mets should win, and they have not been a consistent team by any means. But, if they're going to win a game, it should be against the Washington Nationals, who have been good on the road, though. Surprisingly, 10-7 on the road, but 13-17 overall. And then, just Framber Valdez versus Bryce Elder for that Tigers versus Braves game. You're getting really good betting value on both sides. Two solid pitchers on the mound. Elder's off to a really good start. Valdez, we know he's got it in him. Has not been great this season, but hasn't been bad by any means. So looking forward to that one too. And I think that the Braves are really good betting value here with Elder on the mound.
Yep, that Braves versus Tigers game, a relative pick'em. I'm right there with you. The Braves have been able to do an absolutely tremendous job thus far this season, and a man that always does a tremendous job is you, Tanner. You do great work over at DraftKings. You do great work with the Ride the Line podcast, and so much more. So let the good people at home know what's on tap for you and how people are able to follow along on social media and other platforms.
Definitely. So Ride the Line's available pretty much every day on YouTube. We post segments there, and then you can check it out wherever you get your podcasts on Tuesdays and Fridays for new episodes. You can also find me on social at Tanner Kern across the board, and then on the DraftKings Sportsbook social pages pretty much every single day.
Absolutely. Tanner is doing an amazing job looking at this great game of baseball and so much more. And every single time he joins me, lends such great insight. So big thanks to Tanner for joining me on the Baseball Betting Show, now part of the VSiN Family Podcast. Coming up next, it is that time of the podcast to give you picks and analysis on every game on the betting board for this Baseball Thursday as we touch them all.
We have the tech to get food delivered in 15 minutes, but we all have horror stories about buying tickets. The Game Time app gives fans the advantage. Get amazing tickets in just a few taps. Fees are included, so what you see is what you pay. And the Game Time guarantee means authentic tickets at the best price every time. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets to concerts, sports, comedy, and more with Game Time. Download the Game Time app and create an account for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply.
Breaking down every game, every day in Major League Baseball. This is the Baseball Betting Show. Here is your host, Greg Peterson.
And we're back here in lovely Las Vegas for the Baseball Betting Show with myself, Greg Peterson, now part of the VSiN Family Podcast. Always great to be joined by Tanner Kern. He does such great work over at DraftKings, taking a look at this great game that we all know and love of baseball. Every single time he joins me, he lends such great insights, and he did so once again today. So big thanks to Tanner for joining me in the last segment. Now it is that time of the podcast. I give you picks and analysis on every game on the betting board for this Baseball Thursday as we touch them all.
If a game is listed on the betting board, Greg has a side and a total on it, so it is time to touch them all.
Do note that as per usual, any changes that are made to these plays will be listed up on my Twitter/X feed at gunit_81. We are going to be going in Las Vegas rotation order. This is where we go with the National League games first in time order, then the American League games in time order, the Interleague games, in this case the game that is a Interleague game, that'll be at the bottom. But there is one exception. We did have two rainouts because the board was already set before those games got rained out. Astros versus Orioles, Giants versus Phillies, those games that were supposed to take part yesterday, those got added to the bottom. I will just break those games down together for clarity and to not be mentioning the same players two times in a row. So that'll be done all together with regards to those double dips. But let's get things started with 9:51, 9:52 on the card. It is the Cardinals, and they are going to be on the road. They're facing off against the Pirates. Paul Skeens is on the bump for the Buccos, and Hunter Dobbins is on the bump for the Cardinals. Cardinals are underdogs between plus 163 to a plus 185, minus 199 to minus 220. The number on the Pirates, if you're looking to lay a run half, between even a plus 105 and total 7.5. Unders minus 120, and the over is even. I do like the under. I set my total at 7.1. Hunter Dobbins is making his first start of the season, and he made plenty of appearances last year with the Boston Red Sox. I'm not going to go out here and say that he lit the world on fire. At the same time, he wasn't bad. 4-1 with a 4.13 ERA, 387 fielding dependent. Not a strikeout guy. 6.6 strikeouts per 9 innings, but gave up less than a home run, 2.5 walks per 9 innings. Considering he was pitching out there in Fenway, that's not too bad. Now, he goes up against the Pirates lineup that last year they were dead sinking last in terms of run creation. They've obviously been a whole heck of a lot better this far this season. You've had Oneil Cruz be able to hit above a 250 after he was hitting right around the Mendoza line of a 200 last year. He's been able to give you 7+ home runs. Brandon Lau has been tremendous for this team, about a 340 on base. He's right now giving you 7 home runs. Brian Reynolds is moving the line over a 370 on base. Spencer Horwitz, Nick Gonzalez over a 345 on base. Colton Griffin seems to be finding it a little bit more too, so I mean, it's a solid lineup. They're doing it against both righties and lefties, and for the Cardinals, lots of guys without great averages that are finding a way to be able to reach base. J.J. Weatherall, Ivan Herrera being the main two. Both of these guys hitting less than a 250, but both have above a 360 on base. Jordan Walker has been sucking 8 home runs for quite a while, but hitting above 275, he's getting the job done there. Nathan Church, he has been solid. He had multiple home runs in that series against the Mariners. He seems to be finding it a little bit more, still a little bit tepid on Nolan Gorman along Victor Scott, but all in all, a pretty solid lineup. And for the Cardinals, it feels like they're starting to find their bearings with their bullpen. They're currently in the bottom 10 in terms of ERA because Ryan Stanek, George Soriano, Matt Savanson have been terrible. All these guys, except for Soriano, well above a 5.50 ERA. Gordon Gaseffo, though, has been solid. He's actually giving you a sub-2 ERA. Jojo Romero, he's had a little bit of an elevated ERA, but he seems like he's finding it a little bit. And the Pirates' bullpen has actually been a top 12 one in terms of bullpen ERA. Really don't have a lot of faith in Gregory Soto, but Justin Lawrence last year had a sub-250 ERA. Should see his ERA be able to fall as the season goes along. Isaac Madsen, Yohan Ramirez, sub-3 ERAs. Dennis Santana has been rock solid, and we all know what Paul Skeens is capable of. He had that one first start of the season that was rough because Oneil Cruz had no idea what he was doing in the outfield, but since then, he's been able to get things back online. Ever since that start, he has given up a grand total of 3 runs over his last 5 starts, so he's back rocking and rolling. 9.5 strikeouts, 2.2 walks per 9 innings. I think that the Pirates go out there, shut it down. I think that Dobbins gives you a relatively good performance, but I do think that the bullpen also helps out the Pirates as well. I'm willing to lay up to a -110 on the Pirates run line, so looking run line on the Pirates, and like the under, somebody told 7.1, 953, 954 on the card. The Rockies are on the road. They're facing off against the Cincinnati Reds. Yes, we're on to Cincinnati. Who's on to Andrew Abbott getting the start for them. Michael Lorenzen is on the bump for Colorado, and your total on this game is 9.5. Under is -120. The over is even between -170, -175. That number on the Reds, +145 to a +150. That number on the Rockies, if you're looking to lay run half with the Reds, you'll find that right in the neighborhood, about a +120 to a +125. Was willing to take anything of a +118 or higher on that Reds run line, so I'm going to be looking there. It has been a shaky start to the season for Andrew Abbott, but I do think that he's going to be able to find it a little bit more. For Abbott, the ERA is right now hovering right around about a 6.59, fielding dependent more around about a 4.97. The 4.1 walks per 9 innings is a big concern. 1.3 home runs per 9, that's not necessarily great, but I still have question marks with the Rockies in terms of hitting away from home. They entered into the day yesterday a bottom 5 team in terms of run creation away from home. Now, they did a nice job getting to Brandon Williamson. I think that that's just a result of Brandon Williamson not being a great pitcher, to say the least, and they're much better than they were a season ago. Last year, they were averaging 2.8 runs per game away from home. Mickey Moniak has been able to help out those home and road splits. He's up to 7+ home runs, hitting above a 300. And then the young guys, TJ Brownfield, Troy Johnson, they just give you much more than the roster had a season ago. Brenton Doyle is still pretty miserable in terms of hitting away from home, but even he was able to have himself a nice game yesterday, so that helps you out a little bit. Need a bit more of Jordan Beck, Ezekiel Tovar. And then on the flip side for the Reds, this has been a team that's been in the bottom half of the big leagues in terms of run creation at home with about 4.2 runs per game, and they've got nice, really, really bona fide players in the middle of the lineup. Elliot De La Cruz has been able to supply this team with 8+ home runs, and he's giving you over a 350 on base. Cousin Sal Stewart, he's been able to give you over a 370 on base. He's up to 9 home runs. And Eugenio Suarez, he's right now dealing with a little bit of an injury. He's been out of the fold the last few days, so that's been a little bit of an issue. JJ Bleday, though, has given you a bit of something. Nathan Lowe, after a rough start to the season, he's hitting above 250, giving you functional power, but likes of Cabrian Hayes, TJ Friedel, Matt McClain, you need more out of some of these young guys. For the Reds, the saving grace for them has been the bullpen. They've been a top 5 team in terms of bullpen ERA. Now, they're without Graham Ashcraft. He's on the bereavement list, so you wish him well, but I know that's Tony Santillan, a sub-250 ERA. Brock and Rollberg, Pierce Johnson, both of these guys had a sub-340 ERA with their respective teams last year. They've been solid. Don't really trust an Emilio Pagan at the closer spot, but Connor Phillips has been solid. And for the Rockies, this is a team that is in the upper half of the big leagues in terms of bullpen ERA. They've been able to do a great job there. Victor Vodnik has been shaky to begin the season, but he had a sub-4 ERA last year. Antonio Senzatella has been really good in the bullpen thus far this season. Zach Ognos, he has a little bit of high ERA, but he's able to fill innings. And then Wamakia, Jimmy Ergit, Gene Hill, these guys all had a sub-410 ERA last season. So I do think that this total is set a little bit too high, even though Michael Lorenzen is not necessarily a guy that I trust in too much. Actually, a former Cincinnati Red, as a matter of fact. And for Lorenzen, things have been elevated with his ERA thus far. A nice hearty 5.97 ERA, fielding dependent more in the neighborhood of a 4.56, as he's not giving up a lot of walks, 2 walks per 9 innings, but no deception here, 6 strikeouts per 9, 1.3 home runs per 9 innings, and do think that the Reds get to him here, plus 118 or better, looking at that Reds run line, and like the under, so by total 9.2. This is one of our double dips. This is 9.55, 9.56, in conjecture with 9.71, 9.72. The Giants are on the road against the Philadelphia Phillies. Game 1 is going to be what we were expecting on Wednesday, as it's going to be one Mr. Christopher Sanchez going for the Phillies, and Logan Webb is on the bump for the San Francisco Giants. This game is currently off the board, but when this was peeled off the board, the total was 7. Over is right around minus 110 to a minus 120. The under was between even to minus 110. Phillies were hovering in that neighborhood about minus 140 to minus 150 favorites. Giants were getting up as high as about a plus 130, as low as a plus 120, so I would expect something very similar there. And then in game number 2, it's to be determined against to be determined. The expected starters for Thursday, by the way, prior to the rain delay, was going to be Adrian Hauser against Andrew Painter, so we'll break down game number 1 first, and then we'll go through that when the time comes. But that said, in terms of Webb versus Sanchez, as long as this gets listed up with the Phillies minus 147 or better, going to be one to ride with the money line. Christopher Sanchez has been one of the few non-disappointments for the Phillies as far this season. He's getting 11.5 strikeouts per 9 innings, 2.94 ERA, fielding independent. That backs that up, a little bit less than home run allowed per 9 innings, so he's been able to do his part. And for Logan Webb, it's just been a shaky year for him in general. 4.86 ERA. The fielding independent does indicate some positivity with a 3.32, as he's only giving up a half home run per 9 innings. But all throughout his career, he's always been good in terms of keeping the ball in the yard. The 3.2 walks per 9 innings are concerning. He's just never been the same pitcher away from home rather than at home. At home, career ERA of a 2.91 with about a half home run allowed per 9 innings. Still close to about 0.7, 0.8 home runs allowed per 9 innings away from home. So it's not like he's giving up the deep ball there, but that ERA does go up to a 3.98. Now, one thing that is working in the Giants' favor, this has been one of the best bullpens in all of baseball. Matt Gage has been able to give them good innings with a sub-3 ERA. Ryan Walker, after having a 4 ERA last year, down to a 3 this year. Eric Miller was a really good reliever last year. He's been a little bit shaky this season, but they've still been able to persevere because Caleb Killian has been able to step up in a big way. Giants are right now second in the big leagues in terms of bullpen ERA at a 3.03. Meanwhile, for the Philadelphia Phillies, Juan Duran hits the injured list. Tanner Banks was pretty solid last year, north of a 7 ERA. They did have Ryan Kirkering on the injured list to begin the season. They now get him back, so that should give them a sign of life. But with Jose Alvarado, north of a 6 ERA, ever since he had that drug suspension a season ago. And for the Phillies, last year they were averaging about 5.2 to 5.3 runs per game at home. This year that's down to fewer than 4 runs per game, so been having a lot of issues there. You saw Bryce Harper's been solid, 350 on base, 6 home runs, and Kyle Schwarber, he is giving you about a 350 on base with 9 home runs, but hitting a $190 with the yards of batting average. They just need to get more of these infielders online. Bryson Stott hitting a 215, Alec Boehm hitting below the middle line of 200. Trey Turner starting to pick it up, more of a 250 average, 325 on base, but still, you've had a lot of issues there. The catcher spot with JT Realmuto missing quite a few games has been a big Giant issue as well. And then on the flip side, I have the San Francisco Giants team that they just have not been great with regards to their offense in general. It's a Giants team that currently finds themselves in the bottom 5 in the big leagues in terms of run creation. Rafael Devers just has not paid the dividends that they were hoping for. And right now, Casey Schmidt is actually our leader in home runs, 4 home runs, and he's been able to give you over a 325 on base. And for the Giants, it's actually not like this team isn't moving the line. Like, as a collective, they're hitting for about a 245, but they also don't draw any walks whatsoever. Willie Adames, 202 average with a 242 on base and 3 home runs. That's been a big Giant waste of money. Jongo Lee is hitting at 300, so he's been fine. You've got Schmidt, who I mentioned before, Eloy Ramos, both hitting above a 265. Drew Gilbert has even moved the line a little bit, hitting about a 245. Luis Arias hits above a 300. Now you expect more than 1 home run out of Matt Chapman, but again, hitting at 275, 345 on base. He's finding a way on, but nobody's driving them in, so that's been a big issue for them. So as a result, I did set the Phillies at a minus 148 here, up to a minus 147 is what I'm going to lay on the money line. I have to think that we probably get a 7 total once again. Would like that to the over. Semi total 7.7. And then for the game number 2, they will likely have Adrian Hauser against Andrew Painter. This is still a little bit TBD though, and if you do get replacements for the Giants or the Phillies, because I know that the Phillies might be trying out their Bryce Wilson, that is going to change things a little bit. Like with Andrew Painter versus Adrian Hauser, I set the Phillies at a minus 157. We'll be willing to lay up to a minus 156 on the money line, plus 158 or higher. Looking at the Giants, and then I set a total of an 8.7, 8.5 or less to the over, 9 or higher to the under. If it's Bryce Wilson, it's probably closer to like a minus 125, and then 9 or less to the over, 9.5 or higher to the under. So I'll throw that in there right now. But that's it for Painter. He's honestly been able to do a solid job despite what you might be looking at in terms of the ERA. He's been able to do a pretty good job in terms of not walking a lot of guys, keeping things out in front of him. The 5.25 2.25 ERA is ugly, but 3.33 fielding dependent, 2.3 walks, 0.8 home runs allowed per 9 innings with a presentable 9 strikeouts per 9 innings. And then Adrian Hauser, if you do get him, he's had a tough time in terms of keeping the ball in the yard this year. 1.4 home runs per 9 innings after last year, 0.7 home runs allowed per 9 innings. Last year was a career renaissance, a career best for him, 3.31 ERA, despite getting just 6.6 strikeouts per 9 innings. That's went down to 5 strikeouts per 9 innings, but again, backed up by that solid bullpen. So if you get Painter versus Hauser, 9 or higher to the under, and then would need at least a plus 158 to take a shot on the Giants, minus 156 or better. Looking at the Phillies, again, if it's Bryce Wilson, probably closer to about a minus 125 on the Phillies, and then 9 or less to the over, 9.5 or higher, the under. 957, 958 on the card. The Mets are going to be playing us to the Washington Nationals. And Miles Mikolas is on the bump for Washington, and Freddie Peralta goes for the Metropolitans. The Mets do find themselves as a sizable favorite between minus 220 to a minus 230, between plus 180 to plus 190 is that number on Washington. 7.5 is the total. Over is minus 115. The under is minus 105. Mets run line is right now about even money, and I'd be willing to lay up to minus 110 on the run line. I know that it's been a no good, very bad, terrible year thus far for the New York Mets. There's no question about it. But man, you want to know who else is having a no good, very bad, terrible season? That would be our good friend Miles Mikolas, who's right now rocking an ERA of an 8.49 with 2.7 home runs and 3.9 walks per 9 innings. Now, do note that they might use an opener for him. They've done this a few times, so that's something that you do want to be mindful of. But it's not like that's going to help them out very much, because you've got a Washington Nationals bullpen that is one of the worst out there in all of baseball. Right now, they've got a team ERA that's above a 5. They've been dealing with a few injuries. I know that Clayton Beater has been in and out of the lineup, and, well, that's not necessarily a guy that you want to be trusting in to start with. Brad Lord has actually been a relatively good long guy, so I'll give him a bit of credit. PJ Poulin, he's been a little bit intermittent in this bullpen, but Cianel Perez, guys like this, man, it's just really hard to find any sort of trustworthy arms whatsoever. And for the New York Mets, it does feel like they're starting to find it a little bit more with their bullpen. The two disappointments are their two highest paid guys, Evan Williams, Luke Weaver. These guys have not been good this far this season, but Brooks Raley, Oscar Brisbane, these are a pair of guys who are giving you a sub-3 ERA. Craig Kimbrell just should not be on an MLB roster right now, but I mean, they've had a few of the other long guys like Hassan Warren be able to step up in a relatively big way, and for the Mets, they were able to get online in game number 1 of the series. Now they are dealing with Luis Robert being day-to-day, and Francisco Lindor, Ori Polanco being on the injury list is rough, but I mean, the main guy that you're looking at, Juan Soto, 40-plus home runs, earlier 4 on base last season. He's back. MJ Melendez was always really unlucky when he was hitting for the Kansas City Royals. It feels like he's found a little bit of a home here. Ronnie Mauricio is not like a power hitter or anything like that, but at the very least, he's got wheels. I don't know what you're going to get out of Marcus Semien and Bo Bichette. These guys look like they're busts, but that said, Francisco Alvarez, 4 home runs. He's may have moved the line a little bit. Flip side for the Washington Nationals, this has been a good offense. Right now, they're in the top 6 in terms of run creation. James Wood, 10-plus home runs this far this season, nearly a 400 on base. C.J. Abrams, 7-plus home runs, over a 370 on base. And then the guys around him are finding a way on. Joey Weimer is hitting above a 300. You've had Brady House be a little bit more shaky here recently, but still, someone like a Dallin Lyle has been able to about a 270 for this team. You've got Vivas in the infield who's been able to above a 270 as well. So, I mean, these guys have been able to do a relatively solid job. I do think that Freddie Peralta is going to be able to find his form a little bit more. 390 ERA, 390 fielding dependent. 10 strikeouts per 9 innings is actually a little bit down from. He always has a walks issue, about 1.1 home runs, 3.6 walks per 9 innings. Last year, his fielding dependent was more in that neighborhood, about a 364. I think that that's where he ends up to end the season. So, do think that this total is a bit too low. So, I might tell it at 8.4, like the over end with the Mets up to a minus 112 is what I'm willing to lay on that run line. 959, 960 on the card. It's a Diamondbacks. They are going to be on the road against the Brewers as Brandon Woodruff is on the bump for the Crew. Michael Soroka is on the bump for the Diamondbacks. The Diamondbacks who find themselves as slim underdogs between even money to plus 105, minus 120 to minus 125. That number on the Crew, 7.5 is the total. Over is minus 115. The under is minus 105, and set the Brewers at a minus 146. I do like them on the money line. We have seen a big dip with regards to the swing and miss stuff with Brandon Woodruff last year, 11.6 strikeouts per 9 innings. This season, he's only been able to get more around about 7.6 strikeouts per 9 innings, but he has solid command, 1.9 walks per 9 innings, a 3.70 ERA, and Michael Soroka has been great to begin this season. 2.60 ERA, 11.4 strikeouts per 9 innings, averaging less than a home run allowed per 9 innings, so he's got things rocking and rolling. Coming off a 2025 season that was a little bit suspect, though. He was only getting about 9.5 strikeouts per 9 innings with a 4.52 ERA. He's given up more like 3 walks, 1.2 home runs per 9 innings. But even if he does give you a good start here, for the Diamondbacks, 25th in terms of bullpen ERA, rocking a 5.13 ERA, so that's been a big issue for them. You've got a Diamondbacks team that last year was in the top 6 in the league in terms of run creation. We've seen that toilet bowl just a little bit this year, despite the fact that Corbin Carroll has gotten off to a really nice start to the season. Right now, he's been only able to give you 3 home runs, but still over a 370 on base. Nolan Arenado is turning back the clock right now, by the way. He's been able to hit above a 285. I recognize that he's not necessarily giving you a ton of power right now, but he's finding a way to be able to move the line, get on base, but they're also dealing with some injuries. Carlos Santana being on the injury list is not an issue. They've had Ileomar Vargas be much better than Carlos Santana could hope to be, so that was actually an upgrade for them, but Jordan Lawler is on the injured list as well, and then that bullpen with Justin Martinez, AJ Puck, those guys being on the injured list is an issue. Lourdes Gurriel was dealing with injury, and since he's come back, he's been hitting well below the middle side of 200 with no power whatsoever. And speaking of that bullpen, Kevin Ginkel back to posting up well above a 4 ERA. Juan Murillo has actually been able to give you a nice season thus far. Taylor Clark is a signing I was bullish on. He's right now giving you about a 3 ERA, so he's been presentable. But Ryan Thompson, after a pretty solid year last year, he's been a little bit shaky. I still really don't have a lot of faith in Paul Sewald, and he's had his issues here recently. Flip side for the Brewers, this has been about a league average bullpen, right around about 14th in terms of bullpen ERA. Trevor McGill has been the big reason why he has been rough to begin the season, but that's Grant Anderson, Aaron Ashby, Abner Uribe. They all posted up sub 3.25 ERAs last season. Uribe is hovering more around about a 4, but I do think that that'll be going down as time goes along. And for the Brewers, once again, not necessarily too much of a power team, but they're finding power in unlikely spots. Bryce Terang is up to 4 bombs with a 400 on base. We all know about his base stealing. Gary Sanchez, Jake Bauers, 5 home runs apiece, so that has been very welcome for the team. David Hamilton is only hitting about a 245, and he's not going to give you power, but how about a 360 on base out of him? Garrett Mitchell has been able to give you about a 400 on base. You've got just a lot of guys in general finding a way to be able to move the line. Brandon Lockridge has been solid, and he's been able to swipe bags. The Brewers are just doing the little things well. I do think that they get to Soroka to get the job done. Set my total at a 7.9. Like the over, I'm with the Brewers. I'm going to be willing to lay up to a minus 145 on the money line. 961, 962 will be in conjecture with 969, 970. The Orioles are going to be facing off against the Astros. We do know that we are going to be getting Peter Lambert versus Chris Bassett in game number 1. Game number 2 is going to be Lance McCullers Jr. against Brandon Young. So we'll stick with that first game first, with the Astros throwing out their Lambert, Chris Bassett going for Baltimore. This was supposed to be the matchup on Wednesday, and getting a similar opener to what we saw yesterday. Right now, the Orioles about minus 115 to minus 125 favorites, even money to plus 105. That number on Houston, total of 8.5. Over is minus 125, and the under is plus 105, and I do like this total to the over. I did set my total at 9.2, and I'm willing to trust Peter Lambert here. I set him at a minus 109 on the money line for Peter Lambert. He was pitching throughout the first years of his career out there with the Colorado Rockies, and that's why if you take a look at the career numbers, these numbers are just absolutely terrible. A career 6.15 ERA, fielding independent right around about a 530, 1.6 home runs, 3.5 walks per 9 innings. He's had some swing and miss stuff since coming back from Japan, where he pitched last season. 13.1 strikeouts per 9 innings with his 3.27 ERA. 185 field independence, so he's been solid. And Chris Bassett is right now giving out more walks than strikeouts. That is not something that you want, to say the least. Bassett, he's been taking out line and sinker, 675 ERA with a 627 field independent. Right now giving out 5.5 walks, so 4.2 strikeouts per 9 innings. I will say the Orioles actually back him up with a bullpen that's been in the upper half of the big leagues in terms of ERA. Uncle Rico Garcia has been able to give you sub 325 ERA. Yunier Cano is starting to look like that guy that he was a few years ago when he had that really nice season. Ryan Elsley has been able to find it. And you've been able to have some mixing and matching. Now you're getting Andrew Kittredge off the injured list. Anthony Nunez is supplying a sub 3 ERA. So these guys have been fine, but I have no faith whatsoever here in Bassett. And for the Orioles, this is a lineup that has been hit by the injury bug. Jordan Westberg, Jackson Holliday, both of these guys are currently on the injured list and just have had general disappointments. Pete Alonso has gone deep in the series, but 4 home runs with a 200 average. You expect more there. Kobe Mayo has been hitting below the middle side of 200. All of a sudden, Samuel Basallo is starting to find it. That's good for the team. Leody Taveras sitting above 275, but still, it's a case where we saw this where he would have some flashes with the Rangers and then he would toilet bowl. Like what I'm seeing out of Jeremiah Jackson, he's had 5 home runs over the last about 21 or so days, hitting above a 265. And then on the flip side for the Astros, they have absolutely no bullpen pitching whatsoever. Currently, they're a bottom 5 team in terms of bullpen ERA, with Josh Hader being on the 60-day injured list. That's rough. Aniel De Los Santos has not been great, to say the least. He, along with AJ Bluebaugh, both an ERA above a 5.50. Bennett Sosa has come in and he's giving you an ERA above a 10, so that's been awful, to say the least. Steven Okert has not been absolutely awful, but Brian Abreu has been, so that's an issue. But his team might be able to slug their way to victory, even with Jeremy Pena, Jake Myers currently on the injured list. You get back Isaac Paredes, so you should be able to give you a nice little bit of a jolt there. Yennier Diaz just never draws walks whatsoever, but he's able to give you functional power. And then Christian Walker, darn near 300 average. He's been able to supply 7 home runs. Jose Altuve above a 340 on base. Carlos Correa over a 350 on base. And Yordan Alvarez, he has been able to slug out 11 home runs over a 450 on base. I just think that the Astros slug their way to victory in this one. I'm going to take plus money on the money line, set them at a minus 109. And like that over, set my total 9.2. And then in McCullers Jr. versus Young, this is 969, 970. We are seeing an opener with the Orioles at a minus 130, plus 110 on Houston. Once again, total of 8.5. Over is minus 125. The under is plus 105. I'll be back in on the over on this one as well. And this is one where I'd be backing the Orioles. I did set them at a minus 138 on the money line. I recognize that Brandon Young, over his just MLB tenure in general, has not necessarily been the world's most trustworthy guy last year. Puts it up at 6.24 ERA. Looks like he really figured things out in the minor leagues towards the back half of the season last year, though. 2.53 ERA, albeit in a small sample size of 2 starts thus far this season. Swing and miss stuff has never really been there for him. He's only getting about 6 strikeouts per 9 innings, but less than a home run per 9. He's holding his own, and for Lance McCullers Jr., absolutely no command whatsoever. That's what you do have over Brandon Young. In a double dip, you're probably going to want to save the bullpen as much as humanly possible. How much length are you going to be able to get out of a guy in McCullers that last year was giving out 6.3 walks per 9 innings? A little bit better this year with 4.6 walks per 9 innings, but still, he's right now rocking a 6.75 ERA with a 5.06 fielding dependent, 1.5 home runs, 8.5 strikeouts per 9 innings. I really have my question marks as to whether or not McCullers is ever going to find him once again, because he missed 2 full seasons due to injury and came back last year. Didn't look great. So with the Orioles willing to lay up to a minus 137 on the money line, backing on the over, semi-total and a 9.2. 963, 964 on the card. The Athletics are going to be playing us to the Royals. Noah Cameron is on the bump for the Royals, and Jeffrey Springs goes for the Athletics. The Athletics are between minus 122 to minus 130 favorites. You've got plus 102 to plus 110 being that number on Kansas City. 10 is the total. Under is minus 115. The over is minus 105. And with the Royals, I did set them at a plus 142, so I'm going to be willing to lay with the Athletics. I've been talking about Noah Cameron being due for regression for a long time, and the regression monster is hungry, and he's been eating Noah Cameron whole thus far this season. 5.13 ERA, about 1.7 home runs, 3.1 walks per 9 innings. Last year, 2.99 ERA, 4.18 fielding independence. So, yeah, he was doing for a lot of regression, and it's hitting hard here. Now you have to pitch in Sacramento, where it's been one of the best hitters ballparks out there in all baseball. That said, I do like the under, mainly because the Royals are generating no offense whatsoever. 2.6 runs per game away from home, dead stinking last in all baseball. Now, Bobby Witt Jr. has finally gotten on the board with a pair of home runs over the last 7 days, so that's good. He's always been moving the line. He's hitting for above a 350 on base, but no power there. Salvador Perez is up to 5 home runs, but he's hitting below 200. Vinny Pasquantino, he's right now dealing with an injury. That's honestly not the world's worst thing, because he has been awful at the plate thus far this season. The Lane train, Lane Thomas, is hitting like a 235 without a lot of power. You just have not been able to have guys drive you in. Carter Jensen has been solid since the oversleep situation, 6 home runs, but still, it's been a case where the Royals are just in a power outage. And for the Athletics, Shea Banks, Shea Langoliers, 8 home runs, hitting above a 300. You've been able to have some very unexpected production as well out of Carlos Cortez. How about 4 home runs and hitting above a 350 for them? Jeff McNeil, Jacob Wilson, not going to draw a lot of walks or give you a bunch of power, but both are hitting at 275 apiece. Nick Kurtz, after a rough start to the season, he's over 375 on base. Some of the guys like Lawrence Butler, Darnell Hernandez at the bottom of the lineup, they haven't necessarily been amazing, but the Athletics have actually been a solid bullpen this year. They're about league average in terms of their ERA. I don't really trust them. Mark Leiter Jr. along Scott Barlow, but that said, Justin Sterner last year about a 4 ERA. Same goes for Hogan Harris, considering they had to pitch half the season out there in this terrible ballpark. That's not too bad. Joel Kuhnel has actually been somewhat reliable for this team, and right now for the Royals, this is the bottom 5 team in terms of bullpen ERA. Having Carlos Estevez on the injured list is an issue. Now, this was a team that was in the upper half of the bullpen ERA last season. I do think that you're going to see a turnaround here. Nick Mears has been solid, being able to give you a sub-3 ERA. Daniel Lynch is a nice long guy. Alex Lang is just an uncharacteristic north of 7 ERA. That should be coming down. Matt Strahm has been a little bit shaky since coming over from the Phillies. We should see he and Lucas Erceg, who have ERAs above a 420, be able to reduce those a little bit, but I do think think that Jeffrey Springs going to be able to give you a solid start. He did have an ERA that was more than a full point higher at home rather than away from him last year, but he's been an okay pitcher thus far this season. Not great, not terrible. 3.78 ERA, fielding dependent a little bit above a 4, 7.8 strikeouts, 1.3 home runs allowed per 9 innings, but getting to face this bad Royals lineup should be able to get him online. I did set the Athletics at a minus 142, willing to lay up to a minus 140 on that money line. I like the under, set my total 9.2, 965, 966 on the card. The Blue Jays are going to be on the road against the Twins. Bailey Ober goes for the Twins. Kevin Gausman is on the bump for the Blue Jays. Blue Jays do find themselves between minus 130 to minus 136 favorites. Plus 1082, plus 116 is that number on Minnesota. 8 is the total, under is minus 115, and the over is minus 105, and I made my total 7.6. I do like the under. I'm just trusting in Kevin Gausman here. He's gotten off to a really nice start to the season. Swing and miss stuff wasn't bad the last few seasons, but it was more around about 8.5 strikeouts per 9 innings. We've seen that go back up to 9.8 strikeouts per 9 innings, and the command is on point. 0.8 home runs, 1.5 walks per 9 innings, 257 ERA, 258 fielding dependent. So what he's doing right now is very sustainable. Meanwhile, Bailey Ober, he's coming off of having a 5.10 ERA last year, giving up about 1.8 home runs per 9 innings, and he's looked a little bit better thus far this season. 3.94 ERA. He's done a much better job of being able to keep the ball in the yard. Last year was giving up the 1.8 home runs per 9 innings. It could be a result of giving out more walks. Prior to this year, never more than 2.2 walks per 9 innings, up to about 3.1 walks per 9 innings, but it's giving out less than a home run per 9 innings. Now he's supported by a lineup that I just don't know how sustainable it's going to be with them. Royce Lewis just is clearly playing through injury. He's not himself. Brooks Lee's been moving the line with about a 320 on base, functional power there, but Lucas Shaw, who was hitting a 300 last year, he's been giving you less than a 280 on base. Cody Clemens, Matt Wallner, 20 plus home runs last season with not a lot of average. Not a lot of average out of either of these guys this year, and right now not a lot of power. I will say Trevor Larnach just give you over a 400 on base. Byron Buxton after a shaky start to the season, 6 plus home runs, and Austin Martin well above a 400 on base. So been loving what I've been seeing there for the Blue Jays. They're just dealing with so many injuries as well. Don't call his name. Alexander Kirk is right now dealing with a little bit of an injury. You just have not been able to get anything whatsoever out of some of the guys towards the bottom of the lineup as well. And I mean, the biggest thing for the Blue Jays is they've got guys that are able to find a way to reach base. They're just not having a lot of power right now. Vlad Guerrero Jr. has been stuck on 2 home runs for much of the season. Last year, 23 regular season home runs. He was able to find it in the postseason, but all throughout the regular season really didn't give you a lot of power. Kazuma Okamoto is right now leading the way with 5 home runs. He's only hitting about a 225 though. Ernie Clements hitting a 300. Miles Straw is finding a way to move the line. Nathan Lukes, he's been a little bit banged up, but he's been able to about a 250 for the team. Andres Jimenez is up to a 275, but 23 home runs in 30 games thus far. You just need a little bit more there. Hey, Ansu Sanchez, 4 home runs. He's been able to about a 265, but the guys are just not really driving you in. Now for the Blue Jays, the bullpen was very shaky the first few weeks of the season. It does feel like they're starting to find it a little bit more, and they've sort of weeded out the bad bullpen pieces. Jeff Hoffman is no longer at the closer role because he was absolutely terrible to begin the season. You got Tyler Rogers, Louis Varland, Braden Fisher, all supplying an ERA below a 2. Spencer Miles, when he's been out there, has been relatively solid for the team as well. Mason Fluharty is still at a 5 ERA, but looks like he's improving a little bit as well. And with the Cody Ponce situation, deal with Max Scherzer not being great. It's been a little bit mix and match in the bullpen, but feels like they're persevering. And for the Twins, they completely gas canned the game yesterday with their bullpen. Cody Funderburg has been relatively reliable in the bullpen throughout much of the season, but and when you're relying upon likes of Justin Topa, Anthony Banda, Eric Orze, Taylor Rogers, who I believe everyone aside from Topa is right now hovering above a 5 ERA right now, just not a place where you want to be. So do think that the Blue Jays get the job done here, and I think that Gausman goes out there and dominates. At my total 7.6, like the 8 under, and I do like the Blue Jays up to a minus 135 on the money line. Wrap things up with 967, 968 on the card. The Tigers are on the road against the Atlanta Braves. Bryce Elder hopes to not look elderly for the Braves, and Framber Valdez goes for Detroit. Detroit is in a rather pick'em game between minus 102 to a minus 110 on them, minus 108 to minus 118, that number on Atlanta, so they're starting to become a slim favorite. Total is 8.5, unders minus 120, the over is even, and I did set my total at 8.4. I do like the 8.5 to the under. Bryce Elder just looks like a new man this year. He's not like lighting the world on fire in terms of getting punch-outs or anything like that, but I mean, he's just keeping things out in front of him. 2.4 walks per 9 innings as a career low, 0.5 home runs per 9, still right around about 7.5 strikeouts per 9 innings. That's his career average, but down to a 1.95 ERA. And Framber Valdez had a miserable end of the season last year. In his last 10 starts with the Astros, gave up 4+ runs in 8 of them. He's looked better this year. 3.41 ERA. Swing and miss off his way down. Career low 6.3 strikeouts per 9 innings. He has given up 3.7 walks per 9, but he's always been great in terms of not giving up the deep ball. Since the COVID year 2020, he has given up fewer than 1 home run per 9 innings in every single season. He's had 0.5 home runs per 9 innings, but now he faces off against an Atlanta Braves team that's currently numero uno in all of baseball in terms of run creation. They entered in the day on Wednesday, 5.7 runs per game, back to where they were in that great 2023 campaign. And Ronald Acuna Jr. hasn't even been amazing for the team. Less than 5 home runs, hitting for about a 250. It's been Drake Baldwin and Matt Olson, both at 7+ home runs, both hitting above a 290 with over a 370 on base. Mauricio Dubon is moving line hitting a 280 with some functional power. Michael Harris is hitting above a 300. Austin Riley hasn't even gotten going yet. So, this Atlanta Braves team, very, very lethal there. And then on the flip side for the Detroit Tigers, Kevin McGonigal along Cole Keith are both hitting above a 300. Power just hasn't really been there a ton for the team, but you have seen Spencer Torkelson get up to 5 home runs. Riley Green got on the board yesterday with his 4th home run of the season. He's been giving you over 375 on base. And then Kerry Carpenter, a little bit of a slow start to the season for him in terms of the average, but he has been able to give you 6 home runs. Juancio Perez at the bottom of the lineup. These just right now not giving you anything whatsoever. And they're hoping that Jace Young, their young gun, who they gave a start to yesterday, is going to be able to give you a little bit of something for the Detroit Tigers. They have a bullpen that has been a little bit shaky thus far this season, but Brian Herter, Will Vest, Tyler Holton, they all supplied sub-350 ERAs last season. They had to use Herter in a little bit of a longer role here earlier in the series, and Holton's above a 5 ERA. That should be going down. Vest is above a 6 ERA. I think that normalizes. Kyle Finnegan, since coming over from the Nationals, he's been able to give you sub-3 ERA. Do not trust in Kenley Jansen whatsoever, and for the Atlanta Braves, this has been a top 5 team in terms of bullpen ERA. You've had Dylan Levy, really good for this team with a sub-3 ERA. Robert Suarez was a closer for the Padres last season. He has come in there and been nails with Racy Iglesias on the injury list. Tyler Kinley, since being picked up from the Colorado Rockies, he's got a sub-225 ERA in a Braves uniform. Even Aaron Bummer has not been a bummer for the team, so I do think that the Atlanta Braves go out there, get the job done. Set my money line price at a -144 in on the Braves, and I do like the under. Set my total at an 8.4. That'll wrap things up for the Thursday edition of the Baseball Betting Show, now part of the VSiN family of podcasts. Big thanks to Tanner Kern, who does such great work over at DraftKings. He joined me in the last segment. If you do like hearing from this fine podcast, Baseball Betting Show, you're able to subscribe wherever your podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Spotify, Stitcher, and TuneIn. If you have a question, comment, segment idea, what have you for this podcast, you have 1 of 2 ways we offer those in. First one is my Twitter/X timeline at gunit_81. Keep in mind, letters EM, naming does not matter, so per usual, please do send these into the timeline. And the other way is find an Apple Podcast review. If you rate this podcast 5 stars, it's very much appreciated. And then from there, you're able to fire in whatever you'd like to hear on this podcast via that 5-star review. I'm coming at you guys every single day with picks and analysis on every game, every day, so I'll be back with you once again tomorrow. Thank you so much.
We have the tech to get food delivered in 15 minutes, but we all have horror stories about buying tickets. The Game Time app gives fans the advantage. Get amazing tickets in just a few taps. Fees are included, so what you see is what you pay. And the Game Time guarantee means authentic tickets at the best price every time. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets to concerts, sports, comedy, and more with Game Time. Download the Game Time app and create an account for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply.